Every morning, millions of people wake up to the same routine. The alarm goes off. They rush through breakfast, fight traffic, sit through meetings, answer emails, work all day, come home exhausted, watch a little TV, scroll through social media, go to bed, and then do it all over again tomorrow. For many, this cycle continues not just for weeks or months, but for 40 years or more. Most people call this normal life. But what if it's actually a trap? This is what many people refer to as the rat race. A life where you're constantly working harder just to stay in the same place. You earn more money, but somehow you never feel richer. You get promoted, yet your expenses rise just as fast. You dream about financial freedom, but every paycheck is already spoken for before it even arrives. The strange part is that almost nobody chooses this life on purpose. When we're young, we're told to study hard, get good grades, earn a degree, find a stable job, buy a house, finance a nice car, and work until retirement. It sounds like the perfect roadmap to success. But somewhere along the journey, many people discover that they're working harder than ever while feeling less free than they imagined. Take someone like David. At 22, he graduates from college and lands his first full-time job. His first paycheck feels incredible. Soon, he upgrades his phone, moves into a better apartment, buys a newer car with monthly payments, signs up for streaming services, and starts enjoying weekend vacations. None of these decisions seem irresponsible. In fact, they look exactly like what successful adults are supposed to do. A few years later, David gets promoted. His income increases, but so does his lifestyle. He moves into a larger home, takes on a bigger mortgage, upgrades his car again, and spends more because he believes he can finally afford it. Then something unexpected happens. Despite earning almost twice as much as he did a few years earlier, David still feels like he's living paycheck. And David isn't alone. Across the world, millions of people are following the exact same path without realizing it. They're running faster every year, yet the finish line never seems to get any closer. So why does this happen? Why do intelligent, hardworking people remain stuck in a cycle they desperately want to escape? The answer has far less to do with how much money they make. And the biggest lie about the rat race is that people believe the problem is their income. They think, if I could just earn another $20,000 a year, everything would finally be okay. But reality tells a very different story. Research has consistently shown that when people's income increases, their spending usually increases right alongside it. Psychologists call this lifestyle inflation. Instead of using extra income to buy freedom, most people unknowingly use it to buy a more expensive version of the life they already have. Imagine two friends, Alex and Ben. Both receive the exact same promotion and a significant pay raise. Alex celebrates by upgrading everything. A luxury apartment, a new SUV, designer clothes, expensive restaurants every weekend, and vacations financed with credit cards. His salary has doubled, but so have his monthly obligations. If he loses his job tomorrow, the entire lifestyle disappears overnight. Ben also celebrates, but differently. He keeps driving the same reliable car. He stays in his apartment for another year. Instead of spending every extra dollar, he invests part of his raise into diversified investments, builds an emergency fund, and learns a new high-income skill during his evenings. 5 years later, both men have earned almost the same amount of money. But their lives couldn't be more different. Alex wakes up every morning needing his paycheck just to maintain the lifestyle he's built. Ben wakes up knowing he has savings, investments, and options. One owns expensive things. The other owns freedom. This is why the rat race isn't really about working. It's about becoming dependent on every future paycheck. Think about it. A mortgage, car payments, insurance, subscriptions, credit card bills, student loans, and everyday expenses slowly stack on top of each other. None of them seem overwhelming on their own. But together, they create something incredibly powerful. A financial system that quietly removes your ability to say no. You can't quit the job you hate because the bills keep coming. You can't take 6 months to learn a new skill because the mortgage is due next week. You can't start the business you've dreamed about because failing isn't an option anymore. Without realizing it, your expenses become your employer. This is exactly why so many people feel trapped even when they're earning more money than they ever imagined. They haven't bought financial security. They've bought financial obligations. And perhaps the most dangerous part is that society rewards this behavior. Bigger houses, newer cars, luxury watches, and expensive vacations are often treated as symbols of success. But appearances can be deceiving. Many people look wealthy on the outside while privately living under enormous financial pressure. The people who truly escape the rat race don't focus on looking rich. They focus on becoming impossible to trap. But the real reason the rat race is so difficult to escape isn't financial. It's psychological. Human beings aren't wired to compare themselves with their past. We're wired to compare ourselves with everyone around us. And in today's world, that comparison never stops. Every day, social media floods us with images of luxury vacations, expensive cars, designer clothes, dream homes, and people who seem to be living perfect lives. Even if we know those moments are carefully selected highlights, our brains still treat them as the standard we should be chasing. Psychologists call this social comparison. It quietly changes our definition of success. Suddenly, the car that worked perfectly yesterday feels outdated because someone else bought a newer one. The apartment you loved last year suddenly feels too small after seeing someone else's house online. Instead of asking, "What do I actually need?" we begin asking, "What does everyone else have?" That's where the trap begins. Consider Emma and Rachel. They graduated together, started similar careers, and earned nearly identical salaries. Emma rarely cared about impressing other people. She focused on building skills, investing consistently, and living below her means. Rachel wasn't irresponsible either. She simply wanted to keep up. Every promotion became an excuse for a bigger lifestyle. When her friends upgraded their cars, she upgraded hers. When coworkers bought luxury handbags and expensive watches, she convinced herself she deserved them too. None of the purchases seemed extreme on their own, but together they slowly built a financial prison. 10 years later, Emma had accumulated investments that generated income even while she slept. Rachel had accumulated payments that demanded money every single month. The difference wasn't intelligence. It wasn't luck. It was priorities. This is exactly why advertisers spend billions of dollars every year trying to influence our decisions. Their business isn't simply selling products. It's creating the feeling that happiness is always one purchase away. A newer phone, a bigger television, a luxury vacation, a more expensive car. For a brief moment, each purchase feels exciting. But psychologists describe something called the hedonic treadmill. It means that after experiencing something new, our happiness quickly returns to its previous level. What once felt like a luxury soon becomes normal, and almost immediately, we begin wanting something even bigger. It's like running on a treadmill. No matter how fast you run, you're still standing in the same place. The rat race works exactly the same way. Every raise creates new expectations. Every financial milestone creates another target. Satisfaction keeps moving just out of reach. And perhaps that's the greatest illusion of all. Most people believe they're chasing freedom, when they're actually chasing a lifestyle that requires them to keep running forever. The people who eventually escape understand something that most never do. Real wealth isn't measured by how much you earn. It's measured by how long you could live if your paycheck disappeared tomorrow. And that single realization changes everything. So, how do some people actually escape the rat race? It isn't because they discover a secret investment, win the lottery, or build a billion-dollar company overnight. In fact, most people who achieve financial freedom do something far less exciting. They stop thinking like employees and start thinking like owners. That doesn't necessarily mean quitting your job tomorrow. It means changing one simple question. Most people ask, "How can I make more money this month?" Financially free people ask, "How can I build something that keeps creating value long after I've finished working?" That shift changes everything. Take Sarah as an example. She works a regular office job earning a comfortable salary. Instead of spending every evening watching television, she dedicates just 2 hours each night to learning graphic design. Within a year, she begins freelancing. The extra income doesn't go toward upgrading her lifestyle, it goes into investments. A few years later, She launches a small online business using the skills she developed. Eventually, that business earns money even while she's asleep. Nothing about Sarah's journey was dramatic. There was no viral success story, no overnight millionaire moment, just thousands of small decisions repeated consistently over many years. This is how wealth is usually built. History shows the same pattern again and again. Many of the world's successful entrepreneurs didn't become wealthy because they worked harder than everyone else. They became wealthy because they created assets that continued producing value after the initial work was done. A software developer writes an application that people subscribe to every month. An author writes a book that continues selling for years. A YouTuber creates videos that earn advertising revenue long after they're published. An investor owns shares in businesses that continue growing over decades. In every case, the goal is the same. Move from trading time for money to owning things that generate income. This doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't require quitting your job immediately. In fact, many people build their future while still working their current job. The salary pays today's bills. The evenings build tomorrow's freedom. This is exactly what makes escaping the rat race possible. It's not one giant leap. It's hundreds of small, disciplined decisions that slowly reduce your dependence on a paycheck. As legendary investor Warren Buffett once said, "If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die." That quote isn't telling everyone to become an entrepreneur. It's reminding us that earned income alone has limits. There are only so many hours you can work in a day. But assets don't have that limitation. They can continue working even when you aren't. And eventually, something incredible begins to happen. There comes a point where your investments, businesses, and assets start paying a larger portion of your expenses than your job does. That's the moment the rat race begins to lose its grip. Because the ultimate goal was never to stop working. It was to reach a point where working becomes a choice instead of a necessity. Here's the truth that almost nobody wants to hear. The rat race isn't designed to be escaped. Modern economies need people to keep earning, spending, borrowing, and repeating the cycle. Businesses rely on consumers buying more every year. Banks earn money when people borrow. Advertisers make billions convincing us that happiness is only one purchase away. None of this is a conspiracy. It's simply how the system functions. The more we consume, the more the economy grows. But if we're not careful, we spend our entire lives building the economy while forgetting to build our own freedom. Think about someone who earns $80,000 a year but spends nearly every dollar they make. Then compare them to someone earning $55,000, who consistently saves, invests, and lives below their means. From the outside, the first person appears more successful. They drive the nicer car, live in the bigger house, and take more luxurious vacations. But 10 or 20 years later, the second person often has something far more valuable: choices. They can leave a toxic job, take time off to be with family, start a business without risking everything, retire years earlier than expected. Not because they earned more, but because they needed less. That's one of the greatest paradoxes of wealth. Financial freedom isn't about earning unlimited money. It's about reducing the amount of money you need to feel free. History repeatedly proves this. Many self-made millionaires don't look like millionaires at all. They don't constantly chase luxury or try to impress strangers. Instead, they quietly invest, avoid unnecessary debt, and allow time to work in their favor. While everyone else is chasing status, they're building ownership. While others spend to look wealthy, they're buying assets that quietly grow behind the scenes. And that's the lesson most people discover far too late. The rat race doesn't begin with your job. It begins the moment your lifestyle becomes more important than your freedom. The good news is that escaping doesn't require extraordinary intelligence, perfect timing, or incredible luck. It starts with a series of ordinary decisions. Learning a valuable skill instead of scrolling for another hour. Investing before upgrading your lifestyle. Buying assets before buying status. Choosing long-term freedom over short-term pleasure. Those decisions seem small today, but repeated over years, they completely change the direction of your life. One day you'll wake up and realize something remarkable. You no longer work because you have no choice. You work because you want to, That's the moment you've escaped the rat race. Because in the end, the richest people aren't the ones with the biggest paychecks. They're the ones who own their time. And perhaps that's the greatest form of wealth anyone can ever achieve.